So here's the number one thing you do not want to hear from your banker. We could have helped you more if you had just called us sooner. And my guest today is going to put some meat behind why that is. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Not only is that what they want, but I really believe that care is better when it's just you and your provider sitting at the table trying to figure out what's best for you. And nobody else is secretly whispering in the provider's ear what their own agenda is. Not a hospital, not a health system, not other owners in faraway lands, whoever they may be. It's just you and your provider trying to figure out what's best for you. And today, my guest is Sam Zanayed. Sam is the VP of Practice Business Development at Huntington Bank. Sam's dedication to the banking industry provides Huntington Bank over 20 years of experience, including 7 years of lending to the dental, medical, and veterinary communities. His experience in healthcare lending, along with his experience working alongside other healthcare professionals, allows him to offer a unique perspective to practitioners as they approach the most important decisions in their professional lives. Sam's expertise includes practice acquisitions, buy-ins and buyouts, startups, expansions, real estate financing, and construction projects. Sam clearly gets his hand in a lot of stuff. And Sam, thanks for taking some time to come on to Practice Care.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure to discuss with you and provide information to all our listeners out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's get into it. I said, we are a healthcare marketing agency. We zero in on healthcare. You zero in on the same from a banking perspective. Why focus on healthcare? I find this is a good question just to help people kind of get to know you a bit better. You could have been a generalist, some other industry. Why healthcare?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. And to answer your question, I've been in banking all my life. Well, ever since the age of 18 years old. Never thought I was going to stick through the banking industry, but my experiences led me from one step to another step, from being a teller to a personal banker to a commercial banker,
Wow.
and then seeing the opportunity in healthcare. I've always wanted to be kind of a corny story, but I've always wanted to be a doctor when I was little, and I was really great in the sciences. And my mother always used to tell me that, but my mom worked for a bank, got me into the banking industry, and my career just kind of led me through the banking industry. When I saw the opportunity for a healthcare specific banker, I really just had a passion for it. Well, I love working with doctors and seeing the progression of the going through schooling and becoming a practice owner. And it's one of the things that becoming a practice owner that my father used to have his own small business. So I understand what it takes to be a small business owner outside of being a doctor. Just kind of putting those two worlds together has given me a great passion to working with doctors. So when I started in the industry and I started to tiptoe and understanding and speaking with doctors, I just found that it's something that I do really, really well at. And I really have just a passion for it, not just from a work perspective, just from my personal level. And it's really kind of helped doctors across the country that I've worked with.
Yeah, it helps when the person you're dealing with loves what they do and loves the work you do. So it really matters. So let's jump into it. So in the teaser, I said the number one thing that you don't want your banker ever to say to you is, God, I wish you called us sooner. We could have helped you more. So I'm curious, in that vein, do you have like is there a client that sticks out where you've had to say that in one way or another? We can help you, but man, if you had just called us sooner, we could have done more, or things could have been better. But kind of like the cautionary tale.
Yeah, I do get that problem so many times with doctors, and I always tell doctors it's never too early to speak to your banker. For one, it doesn't cost you anything, unlike
Right.
a CPA or a consultant that does provide advice. I've had situations where a doctor has come to me in the ninth inning and saying, Sam, things didn't go the way I wanted to with my current bank, and I'm reaching out to you to see if there's a potential that you can possibly help me. And as the banker, I always want to help people, no matter how late it is or how early it is. But it does provide me with the ability to help them more from a rate perspective, from a term perspective, from a closing perspective, if we can have that dialogue much earlier in the equation rather than later. It just allows me to be a little bit more flexible, allows my team that I work with to be able to execute properly. It just makes things a lot more easier when you're not in the ninth inning, rather in the beginning. So that's typically
Yeah.
how
And
it is.
for much of this year, rates have been going up. We've all been watching it. So I imagine you maybe are the unfortunate messenger of, oh, if you just called us a week ago. Like that's how fast does that happen?
From a rate perspective, you're absolutely correct. Rates have been going up. Unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball in front of us to tell clients where rates are going to be. But I do urge clients that if they're on that holding pattern, to not wait as rates are going up. So I will have doctors that have initially spoken to me and I provide them a rate, but then kind of sat on it. And then 2 months later, kind of came back to me and saying, you know what, I've done my due diligence and I want to move forward with you. And unfortunately, at that time, rates have gone up.
Yeah.
So I had to present them with an adjusted rate according to where the market is at. And of course, they understood it, but didn't like it. But to know that maybe this rate wasn't great compared to the last 6 months, but looking forward 6 months of what the Fed has done with rates, it's actually still a very good rate that we're able to provide to the client. But it certainly helps when clients can just, understand what we're preaching to them in a way of how to help them, where the market's going, and what's in their best benefit.
Right. Right. And you said a second ago, there's no downside to calling your banker. If you're not sure, calling a banker, if you're not sure, there's no cost to it. Why not? So when should a practice owner call their banker? Maybe that's sort of situation specific. Like if you're expanding, there's one, I'm not expecting like precise windows or anything, or when you're trying to finance equipment or whatever, but what's your advice? When should they call a banker?
From a banking's perspective, I'm a little biased, but I truly do believe in what I'm about to tell you is it is never too early to speak to your banker. Whether the project's going to be 6 months from now or even a year from now, you want to be able to speak to your banker to be able to understand what your lending capacity is, getting that pre-approval. And I really urge the pre-approval because as you're going into buying a practice, acquiring a practice, expanding a practice or real estate, being able to discuss here I am financially, and here's where I want to go, and to be able to build that plan together. And so I always tell people you need to build a plan, and the first people to talk to is your banker, your CPA, your attorney. Make sure
Mhm.
that we're all on the same page, kind of building a team around you. So when you've done that, you're in the right spot to be able to find a practice, phrase a practice better, and even make an offer. So it's really kind of doing that all that preemptive work. The earlier you can talk to your banker, again, we don't charge for our advice, but we basically put a plan together with you to say, here you are, here's where you want to be, and here's how we get there.
And so this team, the accountant, the attorney, and you, are you guys talking behind the scenes once you all get together, or are you only talking when
I,
the doctor's on the phone?
I always ask the doctor to introduce us all together. The more communication we have with the accountant and the attorney, we're all going to be on the same page to benefit the doctor. So
Hmm.
I recommend it. It's a small world in healthcare. So it does help when we're all in the same communication and we're doing what the client wants us to do.
Right. And the reason I ask is that, there's work that's got to get done, um, from the perspective of each one of those that's, in their own silo, but from time to time they need information, the account needs information from you and vice versa, and from the attorney. And if the team's not put together, the whole project's got to wait, I think, right, until that last piece of the puzzle is put in place.
That's absolutely
So
correct. A lot of
yeah.
times we put together a checklist of items that we need to collect from the doctor. We do know that they're very busy in their day-to-day life. And so being able to have, here's my CPA, he can provide you those financials,
Mhm.
and giving the permission to me to reach out to their CPA and him to provide that will definitely make the financials a little bit better for me to read because they're very nicely professionally prepared, as well as it saves the doctor a lot of time from his day in and day out duties that he's paying on the CPA to do all this information. So why not have him communicate with my banker?
Right. And not have any 11th hour rushing and oh my God, and why not just avoid all that? So your advice is it's, when should a practice owner call their banker? Your answer is it's never too early. When do they usually call you?
I get calls every stage of the process. So there's
Okay.
some that do call me very early, which I do appreciate, and I feel that those have been rewarded much better because the process goes a lot easier. But I'll get clients who say, Sam, I'll reach out to you once I have my letter of intent signed with the doctor. And I urge them, well, there's so much more information that I can provide you now
Hmm.
as you're leading into those negotiations in regard to first of all, getting them a pre-approval. Second of all, helping them with what is our maximum lending capacity on the practice that they're looking to buy, which may help with if they want a certain amount of working capital, if they want to remodel a little bit. So
Hmm.
understanding what your purchase price is, what your permanent working capital, and any fixtures that you need in the loan, we can provide you that upfront so that when you're making that offer to the doctor, you know it makes sense for you of what you need in regard to your total loan amount.
Right. Have you ever had to say to somebody, look, the amount of money you say you need to borrow, you're not going to get because your financials look like this, or there's some other reason why?
When we do the financing for a doctor, 25% of what goes into the loan process is on the actual doctor, the applicant. 75% go into the practice that they're looking to purchase. So that number, both very big and very important. Although the
Hmm.
25 is a lot smaller, it's still critically important in regards to understanding what their credit score is, what their debt obligations are, what their assets are. The loan that we do needs to be able to suffice the loan itself for the purchase, as well as the personal obligations that the doctor currently has. And every doctor is different one from the other.
Right.
So to be able to get to that 100% piece, we really need to understand that 25% from the doctor, which will help in the doctor understanding the other 75%. And a lot of the stuff that we do in regards when we look at a practice that our doctor is looking to purchase is we can help with the due diligence. We can think of questions that maybe that the doctor didn't think of in regards to, we look at a bunch of trends in the practice, we'll look at their collections, we'll look at their expenses, we'll look at if something stands out, we'll look at
Hmm.
their cash flow of the practice, we'll look at the procedure mix. So there's a lot that goes in the detail of what we look at that, again, it's going to help the doctor understand what he's getting into and develop questions that he may want to understand before it's too late. I've had a situation where a doctor kind of brought me in at the last second, and going over through their financials, I noticed something in the back of it where his total revenue was divided into two sections that the doctor never caught, the CPA never caught, unfortunately, as well. What we found out is a third of that revenue is coming from associate income, not true revenue of the practice, which is unusual. Most
What
people
does that
don't.
mean? Associate income.
So he was associating at a different practice other than himself. So a lot of times doctors, if they have certain specialty, can go to another practice, work as an independent contractor, but he
Okay.
only filed one tax return. So all his revenue went on that one tax return. Well, so when the buyer was looking to buy from the seller, he didn't realize that the total revenues was not all from the practice he was looking to buy, but it was an accumulation of both the practice as well as the doctor's independent contract work that he did outside of the practice. So when I alerted the doctor, what is this number here in the back of it, he found out the answer and got to know that, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And so they had to kind of rework some of the deal to make it a little bit more fair, according to the numbers.
Got it. Okay. So the lesson there, the moral of the story there is the more time smart eyes have to look at something, hey, you never know, but if it had rushed ahead, then the deal wouldn't have been as good, however it would have played out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen all that often, but you never know. I mean, a pack of financials has a lot of stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Okay. Um, So they should call you, they should call their banker as soon as possible, even if there's nothing to discuss yet, right? I mean, there's no harm and there's no penalty for being too soon, I guess is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah, there's no penalty. It puts you in position, you get free advice, or you're going to get a pre-approval for number one. So before
Hmm.
you're even look at it, if you're looking to start up a practice, we can approve you before you even find that location. So you know what you're working with rather than going out and getting bids on many things and finding out, okay, well, the bank can only approve me for X amount of dollars.
Hmm.
As well as, if you're buying a practice, knowing the due diligence, getting a pre-approval for how much you can buy a practice for. certain doctors, things that we look at when you're looking to purchase a practice is we look at your liquidity position, we look at your past production. Are you going to be able to handle a practice of this size and get the financing? So before you're making offers on a practice, make sure the bank is comfortable with moving forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything you've done is kind of not going
Yeah.
to make sense. And
You need the
some
bank to
lot of
say yes too. Yeah.
yeah, in a buyer's market that we have, there's a lot more buyers than sellers.
Okay.
So the way you set yourself apart from every other buyer out there is one is getting a pre-approval. So when you're talking to a seller, the seller can say, okay, I like to work with this doctor because he's been vetted by his bank. He has a pre-approval and we're not wasting time. So that's a huge
Hmm.
advantage for buyers that are out there. And I know it's tough, when you're out there as a buyer and you're looking for multiple practice, when there's that one good practice, you're going to get a lot of people looking to buy that as well. So you really got to differentiate yourself. Just kind of like I hate to compare it to the home buyer market, but there's a
Yeah, I
lot
was
more
thinking
buyers
that.
out there
Yeah.
than sellers.
Clean
So
close in 5 days, all cash versus contingencies and low. Yeah, it makes a difference.
any slight advantage you can give yourself, it's in your best position to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, well, I feel like we've gotten the message. I know I have, which is call your banker sooner. What's the harm? Which is not the greatest way to say it, but there's advantage. Gather information earlier. You never know. You never know when smart eyes can look at your situation and find an opportunity, give you a watch out, time to correct. It all makes sense. Um, in the interest of kind of bringing us to the finish line, practice cares about bite-sized advice, which I really feel we've gotten. Is there anything you think I should have asked you that you think our listeners need to know about, but I just didn't ask you?
You've kind of hit on some really, really good points. The major thing is really talking to your banker. So I
Hmm.
appreciate that. I can't stress enough how important that is. It's really just kind of making a plan for yourself. Number one, building your team around you is super important.
Hmm.
Once you have that team, you can see a great advantage in the quality of practice that you find and the execution of how we do things. So getting that pre-fill is super important. Getting the advice of some trusted advisor, not piecemealing this at the very end, is critically. And one thing I would harp on clients is, and I talk to a lot of clients, and I'll have this great discussion, and I'll say, okay, here's this checklist, and then a month goes by, and I haven't received one thing from that checklist item, and I'll follow up, and doctors, just like everybody else, get very busy in their day-to-day lives, right? They have
Hmm.
families, they have careers, they have jobs, the holidays are coming up. Is don't wait on that checklist. Get it into your banker as soon as possible. One is there's rate benefits that you can
Hmm.
potentially lock in. Rates are going up, so you want to be ahead of it rather than behind it. So being able to get that checklist, get that pre-approval from your banker, get it out of the way because it's going to set the tone for everything going forward.
Hmm.
That's my biggest thing with clients is talk to your banker early, get him the items that he needs, allow him to help you. And that's the best way I think that
Yeah.
doctors succeed in this
Yeah.
business.
It's funny, isn't it? I want to expand my practice, which is a massive decision. And then I'm late on everything. Like, I get it. We get busy. I totally get it. But these don't
Yeah.
go together very well when you step back and look at what you say versus what you do. So yes, act on what the banker needs. And then the other wrap up question that I ask guests is for those who are listening, you've caught their attention and they've been thinking about this, about some sort of expansion or need for financing. Are there one or two tangible steps you would say that they could take as soon as they're done listening? I think we've hit call your banker. We've hit that one, but is there maybe one or two other ones that you'd want them to keep in mind?
I'd like all doctors to just keep in mind that your banker, your advisors are here to help you. They
Hmm.
truly are. We're trying to do what's in your best benefit. And when we reach out to you, we try to follow up. We try to be as personable as possible. I provide clients with my personal cell phone number. And I
Hmm.
tell clients that when you're working with me, you're going to be working with me and my team throughout the process and even afterwards. I truly want to make sure that they are happy with what they've done. And if they have questions before, during, or after, that they're addressed and never have to go to an 800 number. So one thing that Huntington has strived to me that I've got from senior management. We're not trying to be the biggest bank out there. We're just trying to be the best bank. And the way we do that is one, relationships that we build, two, our process, three, our execution, and four, our delivery. So those are things that we try to do really, really well. And I just urge the doctors to please just reach out to us. Please let us know if you have questions. You can call, you can text me at any time. I'm not the typical banker hours of 9 to 5. I'm just as invested as you are in helping to make sure that you have a successful practice, whether you're again buying, whether you're starting off, whether you're expanding or buying real estate. There's lots of benefits and offers that we have that we can best position you at the end of the day.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you. And Sam, thanks very much for that. And thanks again for taking some time to come on Practice Care. Really appreciate it. Very good conversation and good advice. Once again, Sam Zanayed is with Huntington Bank. We'll put all your contact information that you gave us into the show notes. And then a couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you are a practice owner and you've got an experience with the business side of your practice that you think others would benefit from hearing about, or you're someone like Sam or I, our professional services are geared towards the owners of private practices and you want to share some advice, we want to hear about it. We want you to come on Practice Care. In the show notes for Sam's episode and every episode, there's a link. It's just a couple of questions. Tell us what's on your mind so that we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Practice Care on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks very much. And until next time.